Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Raw. When first hearing about this movie and hearing about how people vomited while seeing it or were disgusted by seeing it, I guess this automatically gets to be in the cult movie canon, because everyone knows if a bunch of people vomit or are disgusted by your movie, you're pretty much automatically a cult movie. You can look it up, it's totally true. And I think Raw is both a very weird, strange, cult-like movie. It's someone who clearly really likes, this is directed by Julia Ducournau, I think, who clearly really likes music and kind of stylized movies, and this film doesn't shy away from that to a very extreme, ridiculous degree, but I think that really works for this movie. Now, this is a movie about a girl who goes to a veterinary school who's been vegetarian her whole life, has to try rabbit kidney in a hazing ritual, and then after tasting meat, loves the taste of flesh and just starts becoming a cannibal. So it's already a little crazy and weird, but I think what she does with this film is she takes kind of the idea of a cannibal film and uses what horror is so good at. She takes this idea of this girl becoming a cannibal and uses the metaphorical possibilities of horror. And I think Raw is actually very, very good at doing that, almost like in a classical, perfect sense that you rarely see anymore. The director of this film knows how those metaphors work, and she's excellent at it. The way it's written is like a horror film, but it's almost, the way it's directed is more of in this kind of like stylized, extreme nature. You could take the script and probably make it in a more normal, basic, bare bones horror movie way, but this film has a lot more flourishes than that. It's already kind of special for being the college cannibal movie. Why not have some fun with it while you're already at the party? And I think Raw does that in such an expressive way. It makes it a very memorable, interesting film, but it often takes a while to get into it. But I think it also kind of, maybe that's on purpose, because this film is so much about kind of the freshman year or the first semester of going to a school away from home. I'm assuming, I don't know, it's like a Belgian French movie. I'm not exactly sure where it takes place. To me, it was just like, well, it's in French, so French place. I don't really know where it actually takes place and like what the educational system is there and how old she is, but to me it felt like a college movie. Basically, the idea of hazing, the idea of dorms, felt like a freshman year. And as someone who, I did not have a great freshman year, it was actually very kind of shocking and different, and it took a while to accommodate to living in a different city and not being around where your friends and family were and stuff. And so I definitely could relate to this film on a lot of those levels, while also seeing her, you know, get into cannibalism and like the taste of human blood and flesh. And I think it works really well because that's something a lot of people go through. Oftentimes cinema is more concerned with kind of the party atmosphere of college, which is definitely there and she gets into as well. And I think most people get into, even if they do have a rough semester or something like that. People are multi-layered and so forth, if you didn't know. And I think Raw really kind of gets into that whole idea of, you know, that she's changing and she can feel herself changing, and often college and moving away is a huge change, and you see yourself changing based on that culture or the education that you were taking in and the new friends you have and everything like that. And I think Raw uses both the idea that she's changing and becoming a cannibal as a metaphor for that very excellently. There's certain expressive visual qualities to it, particularly there's like a scene where the main girl, who's played by Grynis Marilur, I think, who's plays Justine, I think I got that name right, where her and a boy are like, she's painted blue, I think, and he's painted yellow, and they're supposed to just like have sex because they picked two of them, which is like consent laws, guys. But that scene would have been already kind of shocking and crazy and things like that, but the idea of the surrealist quality of painting them both two different colors kind of made it even crazier and more memorable. And it seems like, you know, the idea of them having this, you know, huge party and all these crazy hazing rituals, which I think the hazing rituals, it was such an extreme in some ways. I think this film and this director definitely, either she completely understands how to use metaphors in horror, and when you're going to those extremes, that's not exactly supposed to be realistic, or she's fucking crazy, but I don't think that's the case. Or she went to a really horrible college where they just will not stop hazing. I was never in a hazing thing or anything like that, so I can't really say, but it just felt like one night's fine, but like it felt like the hazing went on for like 20 years in this movie. It was like a little extreme. I get that was like to kind of emphasize, kind of give her kind of the constant thing that's kind of breaking her down, and college is very much like that. You see people going into different groups, you see people changing, you see your own place in the world drastically change because of it, and it's hard, frankly, to adapt. And I like the idea that, you know, she's having a hard time to adapt, but she's also having a hard time to adapt to her own changing identity. And becoming a cannibal is pretty much a big changing identity thing. It gets more into the kind of subtle Cronenberg horror stuff when we go into Cronenberg body horror. People people often when I talk about The Thing and Rick and Morty and stuff. But if you know more about Cronenberg and have seen Cronenberg, you know it's more about the fear of your body and the fear of what your body is becoming, and the idea that, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on in this thing, and, like, you know, it's like, that is terrifying. And I think Raw very much goes into that in ways that a lot of people have even put onto this, that this is the idea of her becoming a woman and her body changing and all these hormones going throughout her, and the idea of having, you know, I mean, she has rashes, she starts likes being like more sexy and things like that, and like the idea of becoming a woman and having, you know, different desires and things like that. And I think that's definitely in here. I think it's kind of another metaphor within it that she's using within this film, which I think was actually really cool. I think primarily it is a film about your freshman year of college and stuff, and it could be about like maybe finding your sexuality through that freshman year, because I know a lot of people go to college as virgins and whatnot, and so when they get there, they're more finding their sexuality, and that is kind of more of a shocking, changing development, and often they attribute that year to that. So I think it sort of works in that regard, I guess. I really like the performance by the lead actress who plays Justine, Grenius Marie-Laure. I think she was very good. She played a very mousy quality to her. It's a very physical role, but I also think there's a real journey you have to act throughout it, and she's probably one of more of the essential storytellers, almost to the degree that the director is. And Ella Rumpf as Alexa, I thought was actually rather good. Kind of gave me Theruza Balk in, is that right? Theruza Balk, or whoever the girl was in The Craft. She reminded me of that. I thought in a kind of like crazier, fun, older girl kind of way to a younger girl, kind of wanting to be that girl kind of way, which I thought was cool. And I even like Adrian, kind of the gay best friend. I wanted to talk about the end, and I'm sorry this is more of a shorter pre-spoiler review, but the end, it was pretty dramatic, and I wanted to speak on that, and I don't want to spoil it. So if you have not seen Raw, it's on Netflix at the time I made this review, but you should check it out. I think if you're interested in it, it is very much a cult movie for the new age, and it just feels like a cult movie. It feels like an interesting spin, a very expressive, kind of surreal kind of take on a horror movie, which I think only this director could really give us. I really loved the showy cinematography. I really liked how beautiful it is, and I'm excited to see more from this director. It sort of reminds me of the showiness of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, but with the storytelling capabilities that that film certainly didn't have. This film does have it. It understands what it's doing with its metaphors, and almost confidently so, like a great horror director is. I'm not saying she is a great horror director maybe yet, but I can definitely see that flourish within her. I'm very excited for, you know, I'm not sure if she's going to do more horror or what she's going to do next, but I'm very excited to see how she's able to use kind of the established genre tropes to tell a story in this way, and the metaphorical possibilities that she ripped out and showed to the world and was able to use to say something while also seeing a college girl munch down on some human flesh. So this is the spoiler section. If you haven't seen Raw, then don't watch past here. One of the things I think about this film is I kind of had quite a journey with it. At first I really wasn't getting into it, and I was like, oh man, I had wanted to see this film for a long time and I didn't get to, from various reasons, from having a kid around the time this film got released in America to just not getting around to it, and I finally saw it and I was excited for it, but I just wasn't getting into it, and I eventually did, and I really liked it. But then the ending kind of goes into one of the things I really hate about horror often, and it's that when you find out that her parents were cannibals before, and that they knew their other daughter was becoming a cannibal as well, and how they hid her from that, and they knew like they would all have the urge, and that's why they were vegetarians. And it sort of goes into a narrative that you are like your parents, and oftentimes when you find out about their college experience, you'd be like, oh, that was actually similar to mine, that's weird, and things like that. And I get that, and I thought that was sure. But I think also with this movie, it really does the thing where it's like in the Halloween franchise where you suddenly explain the Shape, which eventually became Michael Myers, and you give him like this whole backstory, and Laurie Strode's his sister and all that crap. Flat out, I don't like that. I think that shit is stupid. When you're not explaining things in horror is so much better than over explaining things and learning all this stupid backstory about a certain character. I never really want that, and I don't exactly understand why people think we want that. It's like kind of like an interesting idea, but it is not an actual good idea. And it would have been better if her sister goes to jail and her parents are just disappointed and say something about college that could mean something, or, you know, something like that. But having the idea of just at the end, they're like, he opens his shirt and there's all these bite marks and stuff. It's also like, how would you not notice that with your dad? Like, that is ridiculous. Like, that's just a little too far, because when you're around your parents enough, you know, like, what their bare chest looks, you know, at least your dad's, maybe not your mom's, but at least your dad's. Do they not go to the beach ever? I don't know, but it just like felt like something was thrown there, like, isn't this shocking? And I almost wanted to be like, fuck you. Like, I really didn't like that ending. It felt like something unearned, and it felt like something that just like kind of came out of nowhere to give an extra like kind of twist on it that the film didn't really need. You had an excellent metaphor going for you. You had a lot of stuff going for you, but that just felt like there's this whole other world of cannibals, man. Can't wait to see Raw 2 family reunion. And I'm like, ugh. And I feel like that will happen now, and it could happen because of that shitty ending. And I wish they had not done something like that, because it's more interesting and honestly more unnerving the fact that this made her a cannibal. It was some way in her, not within her family. This predestined bullshit that movies like doing is something I've never really liked, and it's a weak storytelling angle. It's basically like, this was always going to happen and it was predestined. It's more of doing the fate versus the free will thing, but the scarier thing would be the fact that this came out of nowhere, and that, you know, she suddenly became a cannibal, and that could have made it more random and interesting and shocking in a lot of ways. But this almost makes it feel like typical and normal and boring. I understand a lot of those college experiences are that, so I sort of get what they're saying with it. I just absolutely like really didn't like it. I was sort of, after thinking about it, I like it a little more. I was like pretty adamant, like mad at the ending, and I really hated it. I still hate it. I think it sort of like pushes you in a direction you don't need to go. I feel like the movie's basically sort of over, and then it goes, haha, and you're like, fuck you. That's not cool. I still like this film a lot. It is a very good horror film. Because of that ending, really is bad. It's just flat out bad. It's just something that horror as a genre likes to do, likes to over-explain, that ultimately does not help the genre. It hinders it and it hurts it, because when you go through and go, well, actually Jason is this and that, and someone's like, dude, I just wanted to get drunk and watch people stab each other. Don't give me a fucking stupid history lesson on the stupid Jason family. Nobody gives a shit. Just give us the fun and the thrill ride. And that's why people liked Halloween. That's why like people like Friday the 13th. And in a lot of cases, that's why they liked Raw, is because they like the metaphors, they like the story of it. You don't need to like go into other avenues that don't even work for, like, you know, if you're thinking analytically about your story, that's not something you really want to do. It almost like undermines what she's feeling in a lot of ways, because it just makes it feel typical. I know it is typical, and in that kind of like nihilistic way that it is fun to just undermine that people are just cogs in a machine or something. It's great to say that, but it just really didn't work in this case. And maybe part of me thinks I'll see it again and go, I don't know, the ending's not that bad, but it definitely just feels like throwing something out there at the end, like a poof of smoke. Just throw an extra thing in there that'll really fuck with them. And in a way it fucked with me, because it fucked with my whole taste for the whole movie. It left a bad taste in my mouth in a movie that actually I thought was really cool, a really great like new movie to be in the cult canon. I think instead it's one that definitely gets in there, but it's one that's probably going to get in there for me with an asterisk, because I'll go, ugh, that ending. And it's kind of something that I'll probably never get the taste of that stupid ending out. So if you have seen Raw and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.